Mic check, mic check. That's all good. Big up everyone. Gonna go live very soon, if not now. Wow. Welcome to Black Band Broadcast. Let me find the PDF. I'm just sitting down now. Yeah, get this up. We're gonna have a fantastic show for you today. We had, like I said last week, we allow the community to pick topics, and we have a member of the community today, a regular coming back to start a topic that he has chosen, and we're going to support him on that. Sounds great. Let me just find let me just upload the PDF so we know what we're doing, and then we're going to start. Don't forget to tell a friend we're live. This is the community show, the Black Baron Broadcast. I think it's this one here, share screen. That's right. There you go. Sounding good so far. All working. Yep, there it is. All right, now I'm your host, Brother Raven, and this is Black Baron Bro. Here we go, I found it. View and then read mode, I believe. Yeah, cool. So welcome everyone. Big up everyone live and who's going to be live in the future time. Big up brother IC3, and big up brother Musa who's in the house now. But let me do the intro and then we'll kick off with today's show, which is will be a guest speaker. So we're best pleased for that. This is the 278th show. So that means that's 278 attempts at uniting Black people locally and globally, trying to find solutions to the day-to-day challenges. So well done, everyone who's been on the journey and those who are jumping on recently. Hopefully we'll keep it going and keep it going. All right. So don't forget to follow the Black Batman Building Instagram page. Does it there? Don't forget it is Black Batman Building. And we always try to start with the retroactive expectation. So it's kind of like, what is that? You're probably thinking, well, these are the constructive activities that the Black community are desired to uphold to collectively recover from atrocities from the past. That's right. So unfortunately, Black people collectively have a shared history, many instances of atrocities, and and healing from those is very key. So when you're doing that, we can always remember the atrocities inflicted upon the ancestors and the community in the past and present, and behave in ways that reflect this. We can reconnect with Black people locally and globally, and form networks to teach each other about different cultures, repair the Black community historical traumas that cause self-hate challenges and self-issues, and rebuild the Black family, Black economics, and Black nations. That's the plan, you see, family. That's the plan. So there you go. Big up brother Jeff in the house, and also big up brother Dominic. Very important contribution to the show. Right now we promote the lifestyle of Black Batman, which is a lifestyle of Black people continuously helping Black people. That's right. That's what it is. Pretty straightforward. We promote that lifestyle here so we can help recover from the atrocities of the past. Excellento. Cool. What else are we dealing with? Don't forget, when you jump in, we're gonna have guests and people can jump in at some point. Right now, we're gonna kick off with our guest, and if he wants to let others in, they can. If others want to jump in, we'll see later on. But when you jump in, please remember discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment. The 4D values. Very important. We try to have like a standard of how to communicate, because we've got people come from different walks of life. So if we can have like a discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment, it makes finding solutions that's a little bit more easier. That's right. That's right. That's right. All right. Now, the thing, we've got two topics today. We might only cover one, depending how long it goes, but we always have a backup topic. But the let's just make sure. There we go. So we have self-repatriation, and that's our guest speaker, Brother Musa. He's going to take that off. But we also got Caribbean boys falling behind. I looked at, I think it's Black Chat, and they're talking about what they normally talk about. But some of the sisters did bring up some of the issues about Black Caribbean boys. It's something we definitely want to tackle in the UK, definitely. But about this education and what might motivate. But we might not get there. We might see what happens. But before we get there, we have self-repatriation. So we have a guest speaker discussion on the benefits of self-repatriation. And without further ado, welcome Brother Musa. Welcome Brother Musa to the Black Bear Broadcast again. How's it going, brother?
How you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. I'm clear. We can hear you very good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good still. Excellent. How's everybody? Big up family.
Big up everyone give the big ups in the forum. Like I said, brother. So just to update the viewers and the future viewers. Basically, we always have a topic week to week, but we always allow anyone who wants a constructive topic or an idea or something that might need some assistance or just discussion or an idea, where it might be, to actually have a set time to just discuss it, maybe unpack. You can just talk from your head, or you can have videos, you can have PDFs, we name it, but we set a space aside for that. So if you ever want to, you can ask. But Brother Musa, he did start a topic last week and the week before. And he said, you know what, I actually would like to really unpack it. I said, sure, next week we'll make it so. And the brother's here because he's very consistent. So we're gonna yield him the floor, and we're here. Well, I'm just here to bounce off you into and you know and just make it make sense. But yeah, the ball's in your court now, brother. You know, how would you like to present this? Discuss this.
Okay, allow me to begin. It's very interesting that you had the co-question that Caribbean boys failing behind in school, the education system. I mentioned self-repatriation or reverse immigration because it is important to say when you identify things not going well, not to sit down and dwell on that, internalize that as if you're powerless. Because every self-governing, self-motivating, self-ambitious group of people would do something about their plight. So whether it be a group of Chinese people and you know in the diaspora who was undergoing that level of oppression, suppression, aggression, not failing in Western education, they would set up their own school. They would go back to China. If it was a group of Indian people from India, if they was under that type of racism, oppression, aggression, suppression, denial of financial support, and etc., they would either create their own or they would go back to India. And their Chinese people are 1.3, 1.4 billion. Indian people are 1.3, 1.4 billion. And Africa is roughly about the same size, 1.4 or so billion of people in Africa. What I find now, what was prompted me to say, well, self-repatriation is because we are facing a dire situation greater than that.
Have you been cut? Oh, look. Brother, let me know if you can. Brother Musa, I on my end you've been cut, but maybe you haven't on anyone else's.
I can hear you.
Oh yeah, now we can
hear me.
Yeah, now you're back. I think you cut for a bit, bro. We'll carry on.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So as you can see, if we're facing a greater oppression, suppression, aggression, racism.
Yes.
Greater than that of the Chinese diaspora and the Indian diaspora, we're roughly the same size in population-wise, but we're not being proactive. We're not being proactive in our remedying or solution of trying to solve that problem, overcome that problem. And thus, if we, by us running away from or migrating from our lands because they were unfit to serve our needs, and we find ourselves in Europe, and Europe is not catering to our betterment and progress because they've either got a ulterior motive or another agenda that doesn't align with our values, either to keep us subservient or alienate us from spheres of power, then it would be wise upon us returning back to our lands of origin to invest our energies there, because that's what any other group, that's what Chinese people would do, that's what Indian people would do, that's what Arab people would do. You see what I'm trying to say to you? And so therefore it would just make common sense. Then we have to ask ourselves, to which part of our homeland should we return to?
Right.
You got Africa, you got the Caribbean, and some of these lands are not performing. So I'm not going to ask somebody to go, you should go back to Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there's, unstableness, a society that is not performing, does not have the organized structure that we are used to in the West. Is that what I'm trying to say to you? Thus we wouldn't be able to achieve the same lifestyle, or we wouldn't have the same opportunities that the West has provided us. So you'd have to be selective. I've identified certain parts of Africa that might be worth considering, like Senegal, or like Tanzania, Kenya. You see what I'm trying to say to you? But it still wouldn't satisfy the same standards of living that one's used to in the West, in Europe, or in America, or in Canada. But that shouldn't be disheartening, because if you are under that type of oppression that one says they are belonging to that group, and it's to the extent that it becomes overwhelming, unbearable, the next best thing for you to do is to take the matters into your own hands. If you start complaining, that every generation is just complaining, it's like that's the victim mindset. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I can't help myself, and the God or the ideology I serve can't help me. So I'm just gonna stand still, be stagnant, and be in a state of psychological misery. That's the conversation never changes. Every generation is just having the same conversation, or it's just getting worse. Or there's nothing you can do. Your mental health is getting worse. Your physical health is getting worse. Your financial situation is getting worse. Your crime is getting worse. Your group's ethnic on ethnic violence is getting worse. Breakdown in marriage, breakdown in family home. Your problems are not even contained in your own area. It starts spilling into other people's area. And thus, every generation just gets worse, or it gets more disillusioned than the one that came before it. And that's how you judge whether people are performing, is the statistics and the trajectory of them as a group. How well they do in school, how well they perform in the workplace, what their family situation is like, how many of them are getting married, what values do they uphold. You know what I'm trying to say to you? These are the ways we're going to measure what's their GDP like, or their purchasing power. That's how we measure the strength of the people, right? So what I found is, okay, you can't really run away from a problem. You're going to go, if you move back to someone like a Senegal that performs not yet as good as UK or France or Belgium or Netherlands. If you move back to a Tanzania or Kenya that doesn't yet perform as well as America, you have work to do. But therein lies the ideological patriotism. What do I mean by that? Ideological patriotism. The reason why China is talking the way it's talking now is because their people had to work, maybe non-stop for almost 100 years to build China, to give it the respect and the patriotism and the nationalism that it has today. China. That means they had to talk. They maybe had to talk less to work more. For Russia to be making the statements and speak the way it does about itself is because there was enough Russian people that stayed in Russia to build Russia post World War I, World War II. They didn't all just run away from Russia and say, I don't want to deal with it because the problems are too financially, politically, and they're too challenging for me. Someone had to stay in Russia to build it, to make it top three or top two strongest nation on the planet. So that's Russia, you've got China, and you've even got India. Somebody had to remember when the Indian people left India, they're in the diaspora, but they always had it in the back of their mind, if this racism becomes overwhelming to them and they can't do anything about it, they would have packed their bags and go back to India.
One second, Brother Musa. So just for those joining, we're joined by a guest speaker, Brother Musa, who's talking about the benefits of self-repatriation. He's leading off now. There's also people who's jumped into the forum. We won't let them on now unless Brother Musa wants to put them on when he's ready, if at all. Just so you know that we've got Brother IC3 who's waiting in there I don't. It's like I said, it's your turn, so you can go as long as you need.
Oh,
But go ahead, brothers.
okay.
So
Okay. I'll
Swahili,
go on.
Senegal, Tanzania as options that came across as now. Well, I mean, I don't know if you want questions at this point. Do you want to carry on? Because I was writing things.
I want to carry on, and then we're going to get to that. So obviously, we've got some part, and I picked these countries. They're not because they're not in. I picked those countries in Africa because they're not in war right now.
Right.
Like Senegal's not at war. Kenya's not at war. Tanzania's not at war. Rwanda's not at war. Ghana's not at war. But they're not going to be at the standards that you're used to in the West. You're not going to be going. You're not going. I'm not trying to sell people African romanticism or paradise. There's work you need to put in. It may take the 50 years. It may take the 100 years for it to become to the same standard of what you're used to in the West. Therein lies the maybe, I don't know if I want to get my hands dirty and put in that type of work to make my own homeland great because I'm too used to somebody else's homeland, i.e. Europe or America. Does that make sense? Thus, as the alternative, i.e. I'm black, I don't like how I'm treated in America, I don't like how I'm treated in Europe, and because Africa, I don't want to put that type of hard work in, or it doesn't appeal to me. I don't have the incentive or the drive to put that hard work into those parts of Africa that I mentioned. Thus, I go to Dubai. A land that it's not your people. That's another group of people that built Dubai. But because they built it to the standard that you enjoy, you want to go there and be the benefactor of the UAE. No black man built the UAE, but you want to go there and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm in Dubai. I want to go Saudi Arabia, another land that's not yours. I want to go to Qatar, another land that's not yours, to reap the benefits of another people that put in that work. Their nation, their history, their culture, their tradition, and what they say goes. You can't be the king of a land that you're foreign to. Does that make sense? So you still don't get yourself out of those problems. So what I saw is that it was the area of reverse migration and self-repatriation needed motivation. You needed to have the incentive, the passion, and the patriotism to undergo that hardship to make the nation what it is. That's on the African side of things. Then you have the Caribbean side of things, which is like a mini Africa. Smaller, less people, less resources. But at the same time, those who are of Caribbean descent still might have an obligation to want to see Jamaica perform, Trinidad perform, Barbados perform, St. Vincent perform, St. Kitts perform, so many of the Caribbean islands, Bahamas perform. At the same time, their standard of living won't be at the same standard in Europe or America, which you might be used to. Thus, you're going to have to put in some work. There's going to be some serious investment to make the Caribbean islands to the standard which you enjoy in America or in Europe. And that might just take a bit of effort, a lot more effort than what you're used to. But the patriotism and the incentive to make where you're from, your ancestors, forefathers are from, to make it look to a certain standard which you enjoy, is incumbent upon the next generation having something to inherit, you passing on generational wealth to people who look like you, then you passing on financial literacy and education to people who look like you, you taking initiative into your own hands by being a free person to control your own destiny. All of these things come with pride. Thus, when people say, where are you from? You give the name of where you're from with pride. Oh, I'm Trinidadian and Tobago. say it with pride. I'm from Ghana, say it with pride. I'm from Guyana, you say Guyana with pride because you know what your ancestors have done, what you've contributed to that nation, to that land, to that society, and you know what you've passed on to the next generation so they can continue the work that their fathers have done. You see what I'm trying to say to you? In the same way, America, if we can look at it through the eyes of the people who control America today, white European Americans, but they pay homage to their founding fathers and the legacy that the founding fathers laid down for them. Constitution, rights, ideas, a system of doing things which their descendants continue and protect with pride and honor. American Independence Day, national anthem. You see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. They say it with strength, innit? They say it with confidence. You know, I'm trying to say to you, American and proud. They wake up every morning, pledge allegiance. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. They know what their forefathers has given them and what they need to maintain and protect. They don't want to let it go. Thus, they fight for it. They know what it means to them. So, and then you see, if you go onto the other side of the world, you see the same type of patriotism of China. They know what they've been through post World War I, World War II. And so they know what work they put in. So they speak about their constitution and their nationalism and their patriotism and their presidents and their former presidents, Chairman Mao, etc., etc. They speak it with confidence and pride, regardless of what hardships they've been through, famine and poverty. Mm-hmm. They stayed there to build the nation to make it what it is. Thus, if the diaspora or outside of China doesn't work for them, they've always got a homeland China to return back to. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is education obviously plays a role. It's so funny that you spoke about the Caribbean boys failing. Sometimes Africans are also failing. But controlling that education also comes with that being independent. Having your own schools or even wanting to create your own schools to create your next geniuses. No other person that says, oh, Western education or foreign education is failing me as a group. Thus, there's nothing I can do. Because if it was happening to Indian man and woman, they will take the initiative to create their own school. It's happening to Chinese children, they create the initiative to create their own school. It's happening to Arab children, they create the initiative to create their own school. They're not going to stand there and accept it. That another group of people is going to pollute their children, and then there's nothing that they can do. Does that make sense?
It does, my friend.
So we give credit to an African nation like Rwanda that's doing a lot to try to reverse genocide, Tutsi. But somebody has to stay in Rwanda to build Rwanda, to fight for Rwanda, so that Rwanda can have a different story today than that of the 1970s and 80s. When it was in civil war. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Because someone stayed behind and said, "Nah, I can't let Rwanda go to waste." Now they could have let it go. They could have let it go to waste very easily, but somebody said, "Nah, it must mean something to someone, and the people there. We need to salvage it." So the story of Rwanda is different to the story of Liberia, which was a place that was designed for the repatriation of diasporans from the American colonies. Liberia plays a very important role. Then you have
so those are listening.
The Caribbean. Hold on. The Caribbean people, from the British island, from the British colony.
I'm
just gonna wrap up.
Oh, you're gonna wrap up? Before you wrap up, I was gonna say, anyone got any questions?
Don't wrap up.
Ask while you carry on, just to get people to be ready for when you finish. But if you're saying you're wrapping up soon, that's fine. But just for people.
No, I didn't want to.
Carry on.
I didn't want to wrap up. I just wanted to make the comparison. The Liberia was set up for the American colony blacks who are post-slavery. They needed to go back and reclaim heritage, etc., etc. They didn't want to be in the plantation or the plantocracy. Liberia was for the blacks that was in American colonies. Sierra Leone, because I'm part Sierra Leone myself. That was set up by the colony of the blacks that was in the British colonies, the Crown that ruled the British colonies. When post slavery and etc., the blacks in the British colonies were repatriated back to Sierra Leone. That was given to the blacks that came from the British colonies. That became Sierra Leone, a place where they were a refuge point for blacks from the British colonies to go in there and rebuild and etc. etc. Unfortunately, Sierra Leone had major civil war. Liberia had major civil war, and thus that idea of a black nation or self-repatriated black nation post colonialism, plantation, and transatlantic slave trade, the dream wasn't realized. Sierra Leone, unfortunately, was a failed project, and so was Liberia. And those are very important countries in Africa, because it was designed to be a entry point for blacks that went through the transatlantic slave trade. It was designed for that. Sierra Leone and Liberia, Ghana and Nigeria and all these places, they weren't designed for that. Liberia and Sierra Leone was designed for that, to be a doorway or gateway into Africa, or returning blacks that went through the horrors, the Maafra. Haiti was the first black republic, but because of them defeating Napoleon and that French armies, and they're wrestling against imperialism, colonialism, the French bankrupted them by putting the harsh penalty of, you need to pay us because you beat us in war. You need to pay us, or we're gonna sanction you, etc. So there's a lot of effort gone into trying to break the first black republic, free republic in the Western Hemisphere. So Haiti has had a bad run, but it doesn't mean you should be able to give up hope and say, God, because Haiti, because colonial forces was there to undermine Haiti, we should give up on the struggle. Because in order for you to acquire freedom, struggle, independence, you're gonna have to work. There's gonna be some challenges ahead of you. Self-determination. Why do I say this? Imagine if Vietnam adopted a self-defeatist attitude. When danger was on the shores of Vietnam, Vietnamese people would have said, you know what? Since Haitians can't get it right, since Sierra Leone and Liberia can't get it right, we Vietnamese, we should just give up in it. And that brings us to the Vietnam War. Because Vietnam believed in what they were doing and said that Vietnam was worth fighting for, worth salvaging. They did everything in their power to preserve that nation. And it was up against the aggression and oppression of a superpower of its day, the United States. But they believed in what they were doing. If we allowed Vietnam to go to waste because nobody wants it, nobody believes in it, we might end up in the same position as black people in the West, in Europe, in America, police brutality, miseducation, overrepresented in prison, ethnic on ethnic violence, breakdown in the family home, crisis of identity. The Vietnamese would have been facing that in the 1960s if they didn't do their utmost to try to give themselves a future and their children a future and control their destiny. So we see examples of nations that had an opportunity to give in to their oppression, and they chose to resist. Maybe because they just knew it was better to resist and create a future for themselves, a destiny for themselves, as opposed to giving up on themselves. Not giving up on themselves, but not trying to fight as hard as possible, generation after generation, to give their people something to be proud about, to give people something to be confident about. So when people ask them, where are you from? They say, Vietnam. They say it with pride and with patriotism, because the Vietnamese did a lot to throw off the oppression and imperialism of a nation and to maintain their sovereignty. Because sovereignty and independence is important. At least you have the right to control your own destiny. And then we can make the same argument for Afghanistan. Why don't Afghanistan? How many times have they been invaded? When people have been trying to conquer Afghanistan since the days of Alexander the Great. That's going back into ancient BC. But I don't see Afghanistan people walking around saying, you know what? Because our country is X, Y, and Z, and we're not as progressive as some of the Britain, France, Germany, United States of America, we should just give up on our nation and not try to fight for it. I mean, if they wasn't constantly trying to antagonize Afghanistan people would still be there. And just get on with it. Is what I'm trying to say to you. So they're not quick to give up their homeland. And they show a fighting spirit that African and Caribbean peoples don't often display. They don't often exude. They spend their time fighting each other, but they don't spend their time fighting for liberation like a nation like Afghanistan would do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Anything you would like to say? I'm not wrapping up, but would you like to interject or?
Well, we've got Brother IC3, and can I bring him up? Or would you? Because I can ask questions.
I've been talking. Wait, bring them in at quarter to, yeah, because quarter to 11. Right, like 10 minutes, and then bring them in.
All right, okay. So we've got Brother Musa who's just given his reasoning behind why he thinks repatriation will be a good idea, constructive idea. We've got Brother IC3 wants to jump in. Folks, got any questions in the audience? Basically, every week, if a person wants, they can have an idea explained. If they want to give a presentation on something they think might be constructive, or to start a discussion about something they think is critical. Brother Moose has done this week. He's talking about the importance of self-repatriation, and just to recap for the people who joined. You're saying that repatriation is a good idea, but you're thinking that, looking at the model of like how China and India is a big market, a unification of Africa, as in because it's the same amount of population as in the billions. But also, if you had to pick a particular country that you have people from the diaspora repatriate towards, hypothetically, you're looking at Senegal, Tanzania, Kenya. This is because at the moment, as nice as it is a country, they're also not at any kind of like big conflicts that might be problematic. Is this correct?
Yes. Yeah, because I'm not gonna then say repatriate to the nation that's in the middle of complete and utter war zone.
Now, I would say that when people give their I think I'm just gonna mute you for 4 seconds, man. I think you've got echo. It's 4 seconds. While I say something. So what we're gonna try is I'm just gonna mute you for 7. Yeah. So is this even working? There you go. So I would say, family, a lot of people are going to come on stage and they're going to present ideas and concepts and things. And I will say, try to bear with people, as in, and try to understand where they come from, and try to constructively give feedback, or try to like have a back and forth. Because regardless of ideas of what people push forward, who are members and so forth, right? I think one of the greatest things we can have from this show is the learning of how to back and forth ideas and communicate and really unpack how people process stuff. So if we can always try to word things in a way that brings forth more kind of like communication and try to understand, but as well as uphold constructive back and forth, I think that'd be fantastic. So we've got Brother Moosen coming now. I just muted him because he's got a bit of a feedback. Hopefully it's gone. But the brother, he's coming with an idea. It's an idea that people have spoken about before. And he's trying to give how he would approach it, at least from just a conceptual standpoint. So we're welcome, brother Musa, back again. Just had to meet you for a bit. Your I think it's fixed now, which is good. But he says that the brothers can jump in at 45 past. So if anyone wants to jump in that to discuss, by all means you can. When you do, if you do, please be constructive. I know sometimes debates are cool and fun and all that, but if we could try to have like the goal is for black people to win. So how can we, and the way we communicate is a part of that process as well. So that's why we always say that if people do jump in anyway. So brother Musa, you have the floor again.
Notice, I was gonna add, notice that there's some other groups have obviously they've gone through colonialism and imperialism, etc., but they haven't. What I've noticed with certain other groups, Indian, Chinese, Arab, they haven't dwelt on the negative and said because this has happened to us, and use that as a crutch and put every kind of list of barriers to why they shouldn't do what they're gonna do. They haven't leaned into that, despite oppression, colonization, war, and all the other atrocities that you can list under the sun. They haven't leaned into that to say that's the reason why we shouldn't attempt to do what we're doing or make an effort to move forward. They haven't leaned into that. And I thought that was very interesting. Rather than to dwell on the negative and all the things wrong, they looked at all the things right, or all the things they could salvage from their past, from their
You're contemplating, brother, or is that your mic cutting? Maybe a mixture, bit of both. I think brother Musa's mic is slightly cut down when he's in deep thought there.
Doesn't mean that, okay, now's the time now.
Now you're back. So you jumped for a minute, just so you know. But in 5 minutes or so time, we're going to open the floor for people to jump in to ask questions, add to the concept of self-repatriation. And when we do, if we can have a construction back and forth. Remember, there's always two missions. There's the mission of the guest speaker, but the missions of how best to communicate as a community. We're talking about very interesting or very challenging topics. So that's also something that we're learning as well. But yeah, carry on, brother. You still have the floor.
Yeah. So people still trying to fight. So people still trying to fight for the progress and the success of Iraq, despite what Iraq's been through, invasion and oppression and sanctions, and still trying to fight for the liberation of Iraq. Some of them are from Iraq. Some of them are not from Iraq. Some of them are just from other parts of the Middle East, but they still have an interest in seeing Iraq perform. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
All right. Some of them are not from Palestine, but they're from the Middle East. And they've got, despite Palestine oppression since 1948, they've still got an invested interest to see Palestine perform, progress, success. You know what I'm trying to say to you? Just because they're not from Palestine doesn't mean they're not from the Middle East, so they still want Palestine to win. You see what I'm trying to say to you? They're from, I don't know, some other part of the Arabian Gulf countries, but they want Iraq to win, or they want Syria to win. They can be Syrian or non-Syrian, but as long as they are Middle Eastern and they come from that region, they rather their region performs and progresses than it stays the same. So they haven't given up hope. You see what I'm trying to say to you? They don't lean into what they can't do. I'm going to say that again. They don't lean into what they can't do. They lean into what they can do. And they do everything in their power to get it done. You see what I'm trying to say to you?
I hear that.
They more stress that. They more give strength to that than to just sit down and just scratch there's nothing I can do, and me to stay in France and be miserable. Let me to stay in United Kingdom and be miserable. Let me to stay in Germany or Belgium or Netherlands and be miserable. Let me stay in United States and be miserable. They don't do that. They'll just do something. They'll try to get their heads together to get something done. So if Iran is not going well, but they still don't give up on Iran. Regime change the regime, or get rid of the Ayatollah and get a better leadership. Then we have a better Iran. They don't just abandon and say, I've got nothing to do with that place no more. Are you with me? So they still, I'm trying to say, they still look back at that place and say, you know what, I really want Iran to still do well. And if Iran starts doing well, I'm going back there next month, next year. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So there's still a connection with their homeland. There's still a connection there.
People can join in 3 minutes.
People
in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And there's not as much of a connection with the Caribbean or Africa from so-called blacks in the diaspora that claim they're being oppressed. You with me? Where's that same connect? If they were so oppressed and backed against the wall, then they should have the same desire. In fact, they should have more desire than people from India, China, the Arab nations, the Middle East. They should have more desire because they're under greater oppression, correct? So their hunger should be, or their effort to want to become something or escape from under the boot of the oppressor should be greater, right? It would only make sense. They should feel it even more. The slightest bit of aggression and oppression to a group of people like the Jews in a diaspora, they'll start to scream anti-Semitism. And if the anti-Semitism continued, they would do something about it or they would leave. Correct? Which is the concept of how the nation of Israel, the modern nation of Israel, was formed. Because of anti-Semitism outside, worldwide. And they said, the Jewish people said, no, we can't live like this no more. We'll go to a place where it's just Jews and we can live according to our own customs, our own tradition. I'm not saying that because, they're one homogenous group. I already know they're one homogenous group. But it's whether you as a group of people, Chinese are not all homogenous. There's different tribes of Chinese people. But they know one thing. They're from that land. Does that make sense? It doesn't matter what tribe of Chinese person they come from. They know they're from China. We'll figure out the rest of it when we get to China. But if problems are reaching us outside of China, we're going to go back to China. Do you know what I'm trying to say to you?
All right.
And Chinese people went through a big revolution, big patriotic revolution, where a whole heap of people died and killed and murdered, and they still held on to China as a nation, post-Chairman Mao.
Thank you. Nice. Now, brother, that's 45 now. We're going to let IC3 jump in. Let me give it that for 4 seconds. Well done for speaking. It does take a lot to come and try to open tight. It isn't easy. So well done, brother. And obviously you wanted to let people know where you were at. So while brother, we welcome brother IC3.
Greetings. And very interesting talk. Very strong points. The brother was making, Brother Musa. They're making some very strong points. I think the points that you're making, I don't think anybody could really argue against them. I think your overall view is quite strong. The only thing now is to what I'm interested in is the details, because things the details is where things get really interesting. So the general view is not really a debate, before long. But now what I'm interested in now is for example, the model of self-repatriation. How do you actually see that, or working out? What is self-repatriation? I know a lot of people, they work hard, save up a lot of money in the West because they come from maybe countries where the currency is low, and then they come and work hard in the West because the 1 year's work here is worth 5 or 10 years' work somewhere else. Then they work here, try and rent somewhere cheap and save up as much money as they can, with the hope of the repatriation. I think the same thing happened with my parents. They planned to come here and work from Jamaica, work hard, make enough money, and then go home, build up property back home. So I think that self-repatriation model that you're discussing is a popular model. I'm just wondering if you have a new model, or are you talking about the traditional self-repatriation models?
Okay, allow me to respond. It's a good question. I lean into the traditional self-repatriation model that your parents practiced. Why do I say that? It's because there was a time when, as an oppressed people, we were asking our oppressor to give us, help us, repatriate us. Does that make sense? But if you are not getting that help, because that which oppress you still wants to oppress you, undermine you, deny you, hinder you, obstruct you, fail you, if that is an intention from those who you claim are oppressing you, you can no longer put your faith in them to give you what you want to reverse your situation of poverty, misery, miseducation.
Oh. Can you hear me, family?
I can hear you, but
Yeah,
Musa's cut off.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
No, we can hear you now. There you go.
Yeah. So you'd have to I don't know which part I cut off, but if you are under that oppression from a people who you wanted to help, you asked them to help you, and they denied that help because they saw fit that they wanted to keep you in a state of misery, poverty, crime, miseducation, etc., etc. They did nothing to build you up or repair your mental health or your financial situation. Then you're forced to take matters into your own hands and repatriate yourself to a land where allows you that mental, emotional, spiritual, financial expression of freedom.
Yeah, I mean, you made that point already very clearly, but how? What is the best way to go about the repatriation? You're making the points you made earlier, which nobody's going to argue with that. Well, we're going to details now. If you've thought about it, but if you haven't thought about it, then it's okay. We don't have to discuss it.
I can go into details. Ghana has become in recent years become very popular for transatlantic peoples that go through the transatlantic slave trade. And thus they set up programs for those who wanted to return. The year of return and all these things is very popular. A lot of people have gone. They went and they returned back to Ghana, i.e. to a place called in the capital Accra. A lot of them ended up in the communities like called Tima. In some of these places in Ghana where you have African American or Afro-Caribbean descendants living in Ghana now. Obviously, it's not going to be no walk of the park, not no paradise, but there's communities in Ghana where those people have set up today, so that if you went to Ghana as a descendant of transatlantic slave trade, you wouldn't be alone. There'll be other people that you can converse with, sit down with, talk with, who have a similar experience.
So is the point you're making there? Yeah. Okay. So the point you're making there appears to be that governments have to incentivize the return. So if it was Jamaica or St. Lucia or Barbados, they have to incentivize people to return. And if it's Africa or Nigeria, the government needs to incentivize people to return. Is that the point you're making there?
Not particularly, because not all the black world is on the same page. Because there's a return to Africa program in Ghana. It doesn't mean there's a return to African program in Nigeria. Doesn't mean there's a return to African program in Cameroon. Doesn't mean there's a return to African program in Congo. It doesn't mean there's a return to African program in Trinidad and Tobago. But I can tell you the places where there is, they've considered that as a self-repatriation, and I mentioned Ghana. However, if you wanted to go to Nigeria and you wanted to go to Tanzania, or you wanted to go to Jamaica, Trinidad, you might have still, it's not impossible, but you have to make a bit more effort to do your due diligence and research to return back if your family is from there. But if you are going back to a part of that world which is war-torn, then it might be difficult for you to go, oh yeah, but you know what, I'm from Congo, but I can't go Congo right now. So the next best, it might be the next best thing for you to do is to go to Gabon. because as long as you return back to the black world and you're escaping a world that's trying to oppress you and re-enslave you financially, Europe or America, you are still doing yourself justice. Like I said, Chinese people have many tribes.
Yeah,
but
you said
if they was getting this level of oppression, yes, they would run back to China. Even if they don't know the tribe, as long as they get back to the Chinese homeland.
Brother Musa, I think what I see for saying, the things you're saying, he's heard and he's grateful for it. But he's trying. I think he's trying to flush out some potential details, which you might not have. I think he's making more of an exercise to expand. You know where to go. So when he says,
I'm listening.
Yeah, that's so because you've been very clear on some of the things you're saying, which is good. So he's just trying to flush it out, really. I guess one thing I could say. Well, I think you did say that
if I haven't missed,
Senegal, Tanzania, and Kenya. Would you say language might play a kind of part in where people might go to?
Raven 100%. So for those who are English speaking, Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, and possibly Nigeria because they're English speaking.
Right. So
Senegal, I would exclude Senegal. If for those who have got a language barrier, because Senegal's not English speaking, I would place Senegal with Gambia, because there's a lot of people that from the Afro-Caribbean or African Americans who return back to Gambia. I'd put Gambia on the list for those who are English speaking.
Right. So are you saying that this is a collective concept that French speakers might go better to like French places and English speakers might go better to like English speaking predominant places?
They don't have to, but to alleviate certain challenges, linguistic challenges that they might not want to put up with. Because I've been to a country where the language is Spanish and I don't speak Spanish, and I might not want to go through the hassle of having to go there to learn another language, to learn Spanish, to learn this, to learn. I might not want to do that. I might just want to go to Gambia where they already speak English and it's easier for me to assimilate. I might just go to Ghana. It's English is easier to me assimilate. I don't have to, but I might take the option. Go on.
Sure. Do you think that sometimes like having like a bigger project on hand might go down? So there's obviously go to move and just become citizens, but like there's like a bigger goal, like to create an industry, to create maybe a back and forth industry or something where like the overall goal here is to build up a district or to unify the people there or to spread a language across different nations so people can, there's like a bigger project that can be a part of the also repatriation, as in like, do you reckon that might be something as well?
Yes, they can be, but that's further down the line of ideological achievement. If that's like, if let's say that you've got a trajectory of where you want to go, you've sat down, you've had your think tanks, and let's say somewhere down the line you would want to do what you just said. That might be at phase 7, but if we're at phase 1, we don't need to be thinking about phase 7, phase 8. So and you might not even get.
Right. And would you say
you might not even get there? It might be the next generation to take it to phase 7, 8, 9, or 10. Go on.
Right, so you're saying a phase is to go and live in another country. That's the phase.
The land of your forefathers and foremothers.
Right.
If the oppression and aggression that we are suffering is as intense as we claim it to be. Like I said, there's other, I mentioned other groups of people who have moved and would move for less than what we're suffering. It wouldn't take that long for Chinese people to move if they were suffering what black people are suffering in the West or outside of their homeland. It wouldn't take that long for Indian people to move if they were suffering like we're suffering outside of their homeland. It wouldn't take that long for Arab people to move if they were suffering like we're suffering outside of their homeland.
Well, I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna say we understand that you're very clear on that. Bro, that's good. We're very clear on that. It's just obviously because we're all in that hypothetical stages now, aren't we? Right? We're just thinking of what ifs and all that good stuff there. But it's also like if when we talk about oppression, like there's also the technicalities of like nations that like allow people to come back, and is there any expectations or any pays or genes have any kind of permits? We know that there were some laws in Liberia that is still around, I guess, the right for Negroes to come back if your grandparent is a Negro or a historical Negro, as they described it, then you have a right. I know there's some countries like maybe Ghana have done certain things, but I'm also aware that maybe some things might be more economically based. Like, you know, if you come in, you pay money or you get like a job or something like that, then that might be like speed up the repatriation process potentially. I've seen people on YouTube say they've become, I think, Ghana citizens. You know, that's something that we can really unpack. There we go. I suggest.
Can I respond?
You can most certainly can. Go ahead. Let me just put that in.
I was trying to say, remember, it's not going to be no, like I was saying, like it won't be so easy, especially to the black part of the world that doesn't have a return to Africa program, like I said.
Right.
So you might have to there'll be an effort there. You might have to create your own job. You might have to, if you can't create your own job, get a job in one of their many industries, many factors, because you're dealing with nation building now. You're not dealing with paradise, or you're going to I'm not trying to offer people some type of 8 or 9-star hotel that if they leave the UK or they leave France or they leave Belgium, they leave America, or there's some hotel waiting for them, some black hotel they can come to. Somebody had to, like I was saying to you, there was an effort put in to make Dubai. And that's the same effort is going to have to be made when you're building your nation. But that also comes with you having when it comes with pride. Because when you build something for yourself, you then have the pride to say that you did it, and you can pass on that struggle and that achievement and that accomplishment to the next generation. It's not easy for me just to say somebody pack up and let's leave. That's not. I'm saying to you, if the situation that we're in is as dire as May is, and we're saying emergency, it's like I gave the analogy of a fire brigade or a house on fire, and then the natural thing is for the fire or the emergency service to come to put out that fire. If our house is burning and black people's in a situation where their house is burning, we're not going to sit down and debate and philosophize about what we should do, or what kind of pillow and room is waiting for us where we're going. Well, you have to run, because now you are out. There was people who have been alleviated of all their riches. Are you with me?
Right.
All their life savings, all their life saving. There was Jewish people. There was Jewish people.
Just running.
I would say that you've done an extremely good job of highlighting the many people who have been defranchised and harmed. So the motivations of why people might leave is we understand why someone might want to leave. I think it's more so that there is a structure, people having a consistency maybe in some form of, say, economic output, right? So that's why there might need to be some interaction from government, so people of certain kind of
connections where things can be built first, so there's sustainability, of people coming across. So certain things are put in place to make, like maybe build an industry or a small industry with other people there. So when you come, you're coming to populate something that has been started, a farming industry or economic or a factory or something, where it's like, okay, where between the people on the land and people here, there's a collaboration to make that transition more consistent. But the necessity of why someone will leave, we understand that.
What if you haven't? What if you haven't got that? Then
So,
what do you
okay.
do?
So we can put things in tiers then. So you're saying that, you say from the standpoint of, what if you're based in a diaspora and you have nothing, you have no form of income, you have no form of wealth, you are literally having problems. Are you saying like that? Is that the
Yeah.
result?
What do you do?
Well, there you go. So this is good. So we could actually have a tier system, right? Where it's like there are people who actually don't have anything, and for them, it's like would it be easier or harder to go from
No,
as we stand here? Would it be easier or harder for someone to go from, say, a country like England, to who has nothing, to a country in Africa and has nothing? Do you reckon it'll be easier in Africa or easier here? What would you say?
I can't say if it will be easier. I can't say it will be easy. It might even be hard, but it's nation building. If I put that question to you, what would you do if you was in that situation? You didn't have anything here, but you was under the same type of oppression, aggression. You just said, because there's some people that left with nothing, had to go somewhere. There's some people that left with nothing.
An effective organization works like the principle of a nation. A well-organized nation knows how to look after its sick people. That's why it has hospitals. It knows how to look after its talented youth. It also knows how to look after its people that are old. So these are all aspects of a successful nation. It knows how to look after the rich people, and it knows how to look after the poor people. So these are all aspects of a successful nation, all aspects of a successful organization. So whatever organization you're planning, it has to have facilities for the poor and facilities for the rich, and then organize whatever resources it has for the effective black betterment of those who are members of that organization or nation.
Yeah, I think when you were mentioning,
Allow me to just put a scenario, and I want I'm just interested in one's answer. Supposing, just hypothetically, that we don't have those things in place, and let's say we're in a part of the world, and there's racism, there is denial of jobs. They don't want to give black people jobs. There's racism. There's miseducation in school. There's police brutality. There's every kind of mistreatment you can think of.
Okay.
To the extent it's this dire situation.
Okay.
Dire.
Okay.
We don't have the organization. Hold on. We don't have the organization. We don't necessarily have the the financial resources. But we know that we're just not getting treated right. And then if we go back to one of the many places in the black world, it's not paradise. The question I want to ask is: do you stay in that place outside of your homeland that's mistreating you, oppressing you, or do you go back to your homeland that's not the greatest just because of the sheer I don't want to live under this level of racism and abuse anymore, and I'm going to do myself justice and dignity by moving? Question. That's what I want to know.
All right. So I think whatever you feel like, basically, because if you're just an individual, then the individual just does any random thing the person wants to do. But if that individual is part of a larger organization, that organization can support whatever maneuvers, wherever the member is, it will support it. So there's Chinese people living in China and there's Chinese people living abroad. So any organization, any nation will look after it, like I think it's Marcus Garvey, at home and abroad. What's the complete this was it African for Africans at home and abroad? What's that saying?
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
at home and abroad. So a British citizen, the British look after their people at home and abroad. Yeah, look after their people. It might be that they don't consider the darkies as British as they would like, but the principle is there. They're expats. So it's the duty of any organization, any nation, to look after their people at home, abroad, rich or poor, old or young. That's the importance of the quality of the organization. So to answer your question directly, that individual who's in that state of mind is thinking, shall I stay here and make more money and suffer this racism, or shall I go home and live a simple life and avoid racism? So if that individual is now part of a great organization that's what's the word, that manages all information, it makes that decision easier for that individual. So that individual has more intelligence on the decision he's going to make. He's got someone to consult with. He's got a body to consult with. Just like if you're white British and you want to go abroad, then they have expats places. There might be divisions of support. The government will support you if you want to do certain things.
Free. Can I quickly interject?
Yeah, go
I need to know, what would you do, you personally? What would you do? Considering all the conditions. Yeah, but considering all the conditions, I'm saying hypothetically, you don't have the finances, but you're under that, you're in this, you're in that, abroad, and then you can either stay here and suffer, or you can go back home. I'm saying that hypothetically. I'm not saying you are in that situation, but I'm saying, supposing you was in that situation, what does IC3 do?
I am in that situation, and what I am doing, not what I would do, what I am doing is constructing the nation, the black world, just like you described, the black nation. That's what I'm doing. And in the construction of that entity, that will facilitate the effective answer to those questions that you just put. You have to set up an infrastructure to help members of the black world make effective decisions.
Right. Yeah. So I think, to add to that, I think what Brother Musa was saying was more if you're the individual choice that someone might make when they're going through desperation. Brother IC3 is highlighting that is there a collective institutional way of doing stuff where from the heights to lows of a society, things have been governed, have been planned, so that transition might be easier, and that you can help people make that transition. I think if you were to look, I think Brother Musa used Israel as an example, but I think with Israel, they were very organized in what they did. Like they went over in batches, and it's a bit different because they were actually forming a country. I guess they were, however you want to describe that process. So because of that, they were definitely organized, and they went around saying, "This is your place to come back." I think that's gone on to an extent where Liberia and some places, but at a certain point, the nation's already formed. You're joining something, but I don't know if I think Brother Moose has come from this from a single standpoint. Like you are going through something, do you not think it's better to just leave?
and try your luck where your family's from or from.
Try your luck. That's it. The individual can only try his luck and toss a coin because they don't have the intelligence. So an individual, that's all they can do is try their luck. But as part of a larger entity, then there's more intelligence. The larger the organization, the more intelligence.
Right.
If the individual only has a toss of a coin.
My response is not so much I'm trying to individualize it. It's just that an individual puts across an idea to the group he belongs to. I.e., the group. I came here as a group. I'm part of the people that came from Nigeria and Sierra Leone. Came to the Britain at some time in British history. So that's I'm part.
Well, we cut. Well, brothers explain himself, but I think there was some others. Any questions in the thing? Go ahead, brother. Yep.
There was people. There's people that come from the Afro-Caribbean group came in to Windrush, and even if we're individuals now, we still had we didn't come as one or two, but it came as a group of them came at some point and established themselves, and they were here. Is what I'm trying to say to you. And then we break up into certain subgroups. Trinidadian over here. You got Jamaicans. You got Grenadians. But still the Afro-Caribbeans, and then you got the influx of Africans coming, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and then what's it? I'm naming all the English colonies first because that's really how it went down, isn't it? Uganda, Kenya, Sierra Leone.
I don't know the point you're making.
Yeah. So the point I'm making is, somebody from out of that group puts something across and says, look, this is what's happening to us. Consider we do this, and then they act on it. They act on it and they fulfill it through. Liberia was a vision. Just because it didn't come to pass the way we desired it doesn't mean that then it's all failed. Because I've been to Liberia personally. I'm telling you that there's a lot of potential, and there's still a lot of potential there. One of the places where Marcus Garvey wanted to return back to in Africa was Liberia, because he knew that there was history there between the diaspora, transatlantic, and those that was already in Liberia. He knew there was a connection there, and he built upon that. He didn't just abandon it and just say, you know what, it didn't work, and it's because we didn't get the results we were looking for. Just forget it. It's not going to work. It's like, no, he acted on it. And if the powers that be didn't do their utmost to block him, he would have went to Liberia. You see what I'm trying to say? He followed through on it. So there is a history. There's a thread of certain mentalities that come from a certain circles, groups of people, which allowed the generations that come after to build upon. And Jewish people wasn't as organized as you think they was. There was a lot of challenges that came to get in the nation of Israel, more than people realize. And a lot of people died. They didn't just hand them Israel. They didn't just automatically have the money to achieve Israel. They didn't all jump on board for Israel. Some of them thought it was a ridiculous idea. Some of them did not approve. So why would you want to do that?
I think that there was still like an organization idea, wasn't it? Like to create a homeland and Zionism. Zionism. And then they'll have like a language. They'll have like hospitals and schools, and so it's more so around what Brother IC3 is saying, as in it's a collective effort, and yes, with the collective effort. I guess what you could do there is, because you have a collective effort, you now have something you can campaign for in the country where there's hardship. So if the goal is, look, we need to repatriate to another country, you could go, okay, well, is this going to be if it's an individual idea, then you can just say, look, leave when you want, because it's hard, right? But if it's a collective idea, you can say like, well, I'm thinking like of getting people from a certain part of the world, diaspora, to go to a certain part of the world. So it could be different places, or we're trying to form a kind of like institution in, say, Ghana or in Liberia, and maybe a housing complex that, and you have to review, like, when other black people have gone to places that there have been tension. So how do you make sure there's no tension between the people that's there at the moment and those who are coming in? You know, so it's that kind of that kind of like structure. That's if it's going to be of a group. But if it's an individual like idea where you say, look, if you're going through some problems, why not just go home? Why not go back to Dominica or Jamaica or St. Lucia or Nigeria or Ethiopia, wherever it might be. But I think if you want like a kind of like campaign, and where it's like people can actually at a certain point join and be a part of something where you're building something economically and effort wise and culturally, then that would have to be like an organized institution kind of way of doing things, I would assume.
My response to that is the organizations that Jewish people put together, that Chinese people put together, and they're not different to what the organization that black people put together. Black people had the UNIA. They had even organizations before the UNIA. And like I said to you, they built Marcus Garvey built upon people that came before him. All the ideas that Marcus Garvey spewed are not original to him. There was other people that fought those thoughts before he was even born. It's just that those other groups, like the Chinese, stuck with their organizations. They didn't let their organizations fade. They kept on going. Chinese people did Indian people did the same thing. They kept their organizations going. It's not to say that they didn't do anything indifferent. And there was many challenges with those other groups of people, like the Arabs and the Arabs infighting within their organization. Everything wasn't smooth. There's like a lot of Arab infighting. There was a lot of Indian infighting. There was a lot of Chinese infighting. It's a lot of infighting. It's not what you think is happening. That's not what's happening. I know because I live amongst them. That it wasn't as smooth sailing as you think it was. Or they had a better. They didn't have a better organization. They just stuck with it and didn't allow the finances to deplete. They kept on investing in it.
Thank you. Let me read out some questions. Jews are a single homogeneous group. Like I said last week, black people are many different groups from different parts of the world with different histories and cultures. And this is what I was saying, like, when it comes to campaigns, having something that's why you say, like, we have an idea to go to Liberia or to Ghana for this reason, to do this thing. That way it's like something new is happening, I guess, or it's like an idea. I guess like what Liberia was to an extent, or Sierra Leone to an extent, outside of the people there already who joined the idea.
Raven. I know people. I'm familiar with this response. Please allow me to respond. I only use Jews as an example. Jews are not one homogeneous group. They need to get that straight. They're not one homogeneous group. They recreated the language of Hebrew much later down the line, within the last 50 or the last 100 years. There was not one homogeneous group. There was a lot of rivalry within the Jewish group, from Jews coming from India, Jews coming from Iraq, Jews coming from Spain, North Africa. They did not all get along per se. It's just that they found something in common that would allow them to share the experience of anti-Semitism. And that was the motivation for them to say, you know what, if they don't like us here, then we need to have our own homeland. They didn't all get along. They didn't even have a language. But, spoken Hebrew, not biblical Hebrew, but spoken Hebrew is a recent phenomenon. Who somebody sat down and put and constructed together. They didn't all get along. And when they got to Israel, there wasn't a job waiting for them. They wasn't instantly employed. Some of them was unemployed. And then they all survived. Some of them died. Some of them clashed with people that was already in the land of Judea. And so people say, oh yeah, but Jews are all one. They're not all one homogeneous group. That's a lie.
Yeah, we agree with you.
That's a lie. And then to add, for those who want to stick to that point, I say to Chinese people, Chinese people are scattered in the diaspora, different parts of the diaspora. And if they was under that same type of oppression that we're going through, one thing they do know, despite Chinese people's different tribes, they know that they have a place called China that they're from. Doesn't matter if they've lost, but they haven't been in China. They haven't been back to China in 250 years. They could be Jamaican Chinese. They don't even speak Chinese language no more. Well, one thing they do know, the Chinese Jamaican man knows his ancestors come from China. So if this Jamaican thing doesn't work, if this American Chinese thing doesn't work, Chinese people in America, Chinese people in Jamaica, and other parts of the diaspora can go back to where they're from. And it's not going to be an organization that's going to be smooth sailing and everybody's going to get along. All Chinese people do not hold hands and sing kumbaya around the fire. There is a lot of rivalry in there. But one thing they do know is that they're Chinese. And as long as they know as long as they remember they're Chinese, they've always got somewhere to return.
You make good points. Because of time and constraint, we always want to, once we hit, we'll add to it. So I'll say that, and this is to add to, I guess, what Bruce is saying, and maybe to help what some of the cops are saying. I think when you have an idea, that you can recognize that you have people who come from different places and might have different histories, but once you declare the idea, people come together on the idea and the brand of the idea. So if you say, listen, people of African descent who might face a similar oppression for these reasons, we're trying to set up something in this particular place where people of that kind of background, regardless of where they come from, the Caribbean, Africa, East, West, North, South, wherever it is, as long as they're identified as Black for these reasons and they've gone through this kind of atrocities by being identified as Black, we set up a place where you can go to try to build a haven and a consistent kind of hub for people of this background, and that way your unique backgrounds doesn't have to change. It's just your unique backgrounds are coming together to form something new. I think if you look at things like that, because what will happen is a lot of people keep saying that, well, he's from Jamaica, he's from Nigeria, he's from Zulu, he's from this kind of stuff, right? And I think when I debate and stuff, I try to make it plain and simple, innit? Uniting under atrocities isn't that atrocity prevention isn't that alien. When you look at many cultural groups from the past and religious scriptures that people write, they always write how their people or a people were oppressed, and this was a solution to whatever follows, right? So I guess if you put it from that standpoint. And I think if you look at the Jewish community, like Brother Musa was saying, even though we understand there's Ashkenazi Jewish people, this kind of stuff, there was Ashkenazi Jewish people in different lands of Europe, plus different types of Jewish people in other parts of North Africa and Europe and stuff. And when they came together, they had to agree upon a way of living that all of them could subscribe to, allegedly. So I think that's the kind of maybe thinking of if you were going to form a kind of institution of inclusiveness of all the ethnicities of a Black background, we would acknowledge that they're from different backgrounds and different histories, but unite on what is most similar, not on what's most different.
Do you not think those organizations already exist?
I'm just reading, yeah, there's definitely, and it's about getting the exposure for those. We don't face the same oppression, even our grandparents, let alone us, which is why people can't be bothered to get up and first change. But all those Jews see themselves as coming from the same. Well, what I would say, no, this is just talking to Stella in the group there. I would say this: the way I word things now is as follows. I think.
Can I respond to that?
Well, you can. Let me add my 10 pence, and you can add your 20 pence. I would say that the way you got to see it is every ethnicity has a potential population of constructive people for whatever history. So what I would say is, rather than acknowledge the amount of people from different backgrounds that might not be able to get out of bed and do anything, it's about, here's the ideology we're facing, and these are the people who's going to be leading that kind of change, right? So that might be 10 Jamaicans, 4 Nigerians, 1 Ethiopian, 20 South Africans. I don't know, whatever it might be, right? But at a certain point, it doesn't necessarily matter where they're from, because everyone's coming together for a united concept.
you know, and what the idea is, the more you become consistent with that concept, the more others will be motivated, right? But there are certain advantages and disadvantages of actually being oppressed, unfortunately. And the only thing that might be able to be described as an advantage is understanding urgency. So people might argue that African Americans, because they live so close to some of the oppression that's going on to them directly, they might be more motivated to do certain things because they're directly facing it. They see it. Or some people with certain lands, they only see it through proxies, or they're not even aware of that. Anyway, brother Musa wanted to say something. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered it. Is just that that comment, you read a comment to say what they say, the grandparents we're not going through the same problem as our grandparents. Is that what somebody wrote in a comment?
I think what they were heading to, that different ethnicities and people from different places might go for different types of oppression, so they might be motivated differently to do certain actions.
Yeah, but this is what I'm trying to say to you. Why not be proactive rather than reactive? Why do you need to wait for the problem to happen before you respond? There's inactive, there's reactive, and there's proactive. Why do you need to always lean into inactive or reactive? You don't need to wait for somebody to abuse you. Just get on with it. If you know what you've been through, then you don't need to ask any more questions. Is what I'm trying to say to you. And
you said,
people.
Go ahead, but something you said earlier about where the focus should be, and I can agree with that, right? That amongst many different groups and ethnicities, there's going to be a whole lot of people who are not bothered or swayed, but the focus should be on those who are, and that's where leadership comes from.
Yeah, right? because I think one of your many wonderful acronyms, you know that sometimes it takes one or a few to kind of set the tone for the rest of them to follow. They're going to be reluctant to follow certain ideals and certain things that are within their interest. But when they realize that they have little to no other choice, or their options are bleak and they're not getting the results that they're looking for, their survival would depend on jumping on a program that would be within one's best interest. I use the example of China because China is a nation with many tribes, many Chinese tribes, many multi-ethnic groups, and they didn't always see themselves as a conglomerate, as a homogenous group. There was a lot of infighting, a lot of rivalry at home and even abroad. But one thing they didn't let the tribalism spill over and overwhelm them. They didn't speak the same tongue. Somebody had to sit down and propose the idea that they need to speak one tongue amongst the many tongues and call it Mandarin. That way we can understand each other despite our tribal ethnic groups and our personal languages in our regional languages that we have. They didn't always see eye to eye. It takes effort. And there was a whole heap of bloodshed, famine, disease, civil war, revolution. They didn't want to come together. Then they wanted to do their own thing. Why should you be the king? I want to be the king. You had all of that going on. But it's just that the difference is between the China, home and abroad, they stuck with it, despite the oppression and abuse they were suffering in America, in the Caribbean, in this place, in that place, in South Africa. They stuck through it. They stuck with their organization.
Remember, we like the points you raised, so we're going to jump into add to it. So the brother said, the sister said, I think, we don't face a severe level of oppression in the UK, which is going to make me want to move to Africa. I don't know many black people who are, which is why people are not leaving. So I think, and yeah, you're always going to, like I said, just for those who are joining, we're talking about hypothetical concepts of solutions, and the brother Musa's brought the concept of, real concept that is we're aware of the repatriations of going back to another place, and certain countries were pushed forward. Africa was one of them. People of African descent going back, and I think there's some people's responding, and we're just having a constructive back and forth of the hypothetical concept for those who are joining or those who are joining the future. So
can I quickly give?
Go ahead.
If I heard you correctly, they said there was a comment said that I don't have the incentive to want to go back to Africa because could you read that comment again?
So I don't face severe level of oppression in the UK, which is going to make me want to move to Africa. I don't know many black people who are, which is why people are not leaving in masses.
Can you see the difference in mentality? And this is why this topic is so brilliant. People make statements belonging to the very group that we're speaking about, the blacks, and they say, well, I'm not really facing that type of oppression. Oh, I don't really know what you're talking about. People make those type of statements. Is that what I'm trying to say to you? And other groups of people, the way they interact or the way they express oppression is very different to blacks. They don't think the way blacks do when it comes to their oppression. When it comes to Chinese racism, they don't think like that. When it comes to Indian people's racism, they don't think like that. They don't arrive at the same conclusions. Oh yeah, but I'm not really facing that. They know what racism is. And the way they intellectualize it and the way they respond to it is more proactive. They don't try to delude themselves or deny that something is taking place, or they drift off into some type of fantasy that what's happening is not happening.
Let me add to
my response to the comment. My response to that comment that person goes to a football match, and you see if racism is still alive in Britain in 2026. Go to a football match. Go to a live football match. Sit down in the stadium and tell me if racism is still in Britain.
So the response is, I'm saying UK isn't as bad as you're making it out in a nutshell. And I think that the perception of bad is always going to be your issue, and that's why I kept saying that institutions and also back and forth networks where it isn't necessarily the drive isn't well, and this is you'll have your own motivation, but the drive isn't necessarily that things are bad, so you should leave. Either things could be bad because it's a spectrum, and also it's how people perceive things. Yeah, it's more so people of a certain group, of a certain background, of a certain treatment are organizing to do good ideas. And the good ideas, one of the benefits is people who might be oppressed can benefit from these good ideas. You see? And then some people
very well put.
Some people might not be within the first wave. Like some people, no matter what you present them, they have to see their granddad or their best friend or someone doing it, and they go, you know what, that actually looks like a good idea. But they'll never be a part of the initiation process because that's just the way their mind's wired. That's why I keep talking about the concept of the open door lead. Like the people who want to lead, they who have the best kind of capacity to lead do, and other people, they'll join on the second or the third wave. But not everyone's like, most people don't join things when it's new. Like most people, they joined, and that's what we've got the charts here about the innovation of for those. Oh, I might as well show it. For Karen talk about, I'll show you what I mean.
Mr. Raven, allow me to ask you something. Why do you think that is when it comes to us? Why do you think we don't seem to respond in the same way other groups do? Why do you think that is? I think you obviously use it. Go on.
I'll tell you. So it's multiple answers, but the first one is when it comes to reacting to like atrocities and trying to find solutions. I haven't seen a collective group go through what black people was going through. Like black people have been thoroughly made to be subservient, and this has gone on for hundreds of years, whether it's through colonization or enslavement, apartheid, or whatever. It is well, like other people haven't gone through that, who've been labeled something like blacks, Asians, Indians, white, yellow, red, whatever. So that has gone on. So you're dealing with people who are dealing with the worst kind of treatment, right? And you're also dealing with financial hardship, where other people groups might have more of an economic base to pull from, while unfortunately countries that's undeveloped and people who've been undeveloped haven't. And I guess there are many people who have money but their money isn't necessarily a full independent kind of thing where their wealth is almost being given to them by the dominant society, right? And as you see, like, you know, when you see like where they say like, if you are a rich person and you speak out against this, overnight you might become poor. So people are very wary of all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that might be a contributing factor of why people might not view things as an urgency that others might have. So let's read the thing. No celebration was bad, but this didn't say that. I'm saying UK isn't bad. Make it nutshell. It's not new. So just so you know, not most things that you're gonna hear, I guess, won't be new. I guess there is no like, well, some things might be, but there is no like revolutionary kind of like concept that hasn't been articulated. I think what's here is the brothers just trying to find out, you know, why it didn't become as widespread, and is there value in it become widespread, and how to make it widespread. Certain ideas, and this is saying there's a channel which we've shared about the black people going back. I shared it in the group. If you go up, people can follow that group. But anyway, before you go there, this will also contribute to your questioning, right? And this is the concept of how change make, right? So normally you 2.5% of people come off idea. So let's just say that back to Africa is the idea. That's so people are doing it, promoting it, and doing it, right? 2.5. Those 2.5 through someone or something they do it gets early adoption by 13%, right? So the 30% see that, right? Once they see that, the early adopters, the early majority see that. So a bigger mass starts seeing more trendy people. They never see the innovators. They only see the trendy people doing it. And then they start practicing it. And before you know it, this is the late majority. This is people where they don't even know they're doing stuff. Like they bought shoes because they see people buy shoes. They don't think about, should I buy a new brand, whatever. It's like whatever the trendy video game, shoe, or sport is, they'll do. So this is and then there's the percentage of people who never will change. They have a way of living that suits them, and they're gonna do that. And that's the laggers, right? So this, and we've put this in the Black Betterment kind of wording. So innovators, influencers, as imitators, and idlers, right? There it is. And once you get things into a critical mass, meaning this 25% here, which is the innovators and the influencers, then everything just changes. Once you have 25% of a population group doing something, and we can refer to this as phase one, yeah, or the open door elite, as I've said, 25%, right? You know, it's more so 2.5 is the open door elite, but generally you can see it as this 25% is critical mass, and we can refer to them as the open door elite because that's who everyone's going to move. So you want to get your innovation idea working. That's your 2.5%. The people come up with the ideas, and then you want to get your key influencers doing this. You see, your key influencers. So an example would be Muhammad Ali didn't come up with the ideas he was saying. He was an amazing boxer, an amazing orator. He was influenced by someone like Malcolm X, who then was influenced by Elijah Muhammad. You see, so Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad would more be the innovators, while Muhammad Ali was the influencer. You see, so that's how you can get ideas spreading. Hope that helps.
Allow me to respond.
Go ahead.
One can start small. If the first phase is trying to relocate to a place, which is black, then one can start there. One does not need to go and overwhelm themselves with ideas that would be, building upon those type of things later on down the line. If you're at phase one, stay at phase one. Phase 7, phase 8, phase 9 is much later down the line. I tend to find people saying, "Oh, but you know what are we going to do about this, that?" And then they overwhelm themselves. If you have a place to return back to in Ghana, then return back to in Ghana. And then there's no point in me sending you to, I don't know, Sudan that's in the middle of war. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to redeem everything of the whole black world, or the whole of Africa, or the whole of the Caribbean all at once. But you're going to go to a part of the world which is not in that state of dire oppression, depression, etc. I'm sure there's a big difference between Ghana and Northern Sudan. Do you get it?
So we got brother saying Malcolm X was a great orator, Muhammad Ali was a great entertainer. One was loved by the people because of how they spoke, and one was loved by white people because of how they spoke. Yeah, but the example we want to take from them is we can ignore white people or non-black people at this point. Because Muhammad Ali was loved by black people and had a lot of eyes on him, the world, to be honest, everything he said was key, and he was saying ideologies that came through his friend Malcolm X, and Malcolm X was get through the Elijah Muhammad. So those it's more so how he could influence other black people to clean himself up, focus on black economics. I love black people. I mean, he's a very good case study to do because he's like, we don't really see people like him now who are that consistent, you know, and out for the people. Like I said, black people have been beaten out of us, right? Don't do that, right? But he's a good case study, and we can see where that comes from. That deliberate kind of strategy of have an idea that benefits black people, get it out to the people, get influencers saying it, and then before you know it, you will grow a movement or an idea, and you'll get organization going that way. Now we're going to end very soon, if not nowish. Is there any questions in the audience or any last things that Brother Musa would like to say at all? Well done, Brother Musa, for start. It's not easy to start and bring an idea, and so well done for doing it. And we also big up our brother IC3 who jumped in and jumped out to add to it. Well done. Any kind of last things you'd like to do at all? Say.
You kind of covered for this time. For the first time round, we covered a lot of I believe we covered a lot of areas.
We did.
So obviously it's a big matter, not something simple. So I would say anyone approaching self-repatriation, start small. So this is not about you trying to do the utmost to overwhelm yourself. If you find a place in the black world that is stable, i.e. Gambia, why not return back to Gambia? Is what I'm trying to say to you. You start small, and then you build on that over time and over generations. It's not something that you meant to solve instantly. And like I said, people often lean into the negative. They look for all the reasons why they shouldn't do something, or they make statements like, "Well, I'm not really under that level of oppression, or that level of suppression, or that level of racism, or that level of." They give all the reasons why they shouldn't do something because they believe it's not in their face.
Right.
Until something like George Floyd happens.
Right.
And they say, "Oh yeah," I would say, "Oh yeah," but that's in America. That's not happening to me. Until something like the situation with Chris Carver in Britain happened, and the police shooting of Chris Carver, or Mark Duggan, or killing of Mark Duggan. It happens in the UK. Then it's no longer George Floyd in America, it's Mark Duggan in the UK.
Point heard, brother. I'm going to add in because we're going to end soon. So to the Sister Stella saying that Malcolm had many people who influenced him. It's very true. That's answered the point. So the idea is someone is part of the innovation crowd. They're influenced by other innovators, and then they help influence influential people who then go to the masses. So that is the point. After you, bro, comment, I think we were saying about the phases as well. That sometimes some people will have to be the leaders or the people who actually are seen doing it, and then when they see that works, you have other people jumping in. We gave a diagram of the innovators, the early adapters, the late adapters, all sorts, right? And yeah, right. You can sell people a product but not using your self-basic market. Very true. We just covered that just now. Roadman, Chris shot someone at club. Context important as is closing the right. I think just talking. I mean, you're talking about the circumstance where someone died. I don't know, but either way, we've had a fantastic discussion.
big up everyone who joined on, and we look forward to others. If you wish to have your own kind of topic or you have solutions you want to push forward, and hopefully we can get more in the back and forth how people can jump in and have a nice, constructive, solution-based conversation. We give thanks. Everyone gives thanks to Brother Moose for jumping on and articulating the ideas that he thinks will work really well. We give thanks to that. So to all those people who are practicing Black Betterment, know that you're important. And for those who don't, know that you're loved. And those who are important are going to work on your behalf, as we're saying here. And big up Stella, big up, let's go through the thing. Big up IC3, big up Jeff, big up Dominic, big up Sister She Reigns, big up and everyone else in the background. There's tons of people. And I know there's some people in the background who actually wanted to speak, but they don't really, and that's something we want to create a space where people can feel motivated to speak. So we have to try to always ask questions, and even though we might doubt or have doubts some people might do, let's try to word things in a way that can motivate people to want to come up, because it can be quite daunting to try to speak your ideas. There you go. We're going to leave it there, but thank you, brother. We'll check you. Hope you guys next week. Until next week, everyone. Black Betterment to all and to all Black Betterment. I hope you have a good time. Oh, yeah. Let's go. End the show.